This is Mrs. Wainwright's Math Class, Chapter 3, Lesson 10, Problem Solving, Patterns with Decimals. Today's learning target: by the end of the lesson, you should confidently be able to say, I can use addition or subtraction to describe a pattern or create a sequence with decimals. We have some vocabulary to go along with today's lesson, and our first word is sequence. A sequence is an ordered list of numbers. So the numbers follow a sequence, like counting by ones, 1, 2, 3, 4, or counting by twos, 2, 4, 6, 8. It's an ordered list of numbers. Our next vocabulary word is term. A term is each number in a sequence. So if our sequence was counting by twos, 2, 4, 6, 8, the first term would be 2, the second term would be 4, the third term would be 6, and so on and so forth. So we have sequence and term. Let's take a look at example number 1. A state park rents canoes for guests to use at the lake. It costs $5 to rent a canoe for 1 hour, $6.75 for 2 hours, $8.50 for 3 hours, and $10.25 for 4 hours. If this pattern continues, how much should it cost to rent a canoe for 7 hours? So again, I'm going to picture my YouTube video. I'm at a state park. I know I picture myself in a room and at a desk to rent a canoe, because obviously there's a lake and I want to go canoeing. And they see a sign above the person that works there, and it says, canoe rental, $5 for 1 hour, $6.75 for 2 hours, $8.50 for 3 hours, $10.25 for 4 hours. But I want to rent my canoe for the whole day. I want to have lunch, etc., explore some islands around. I want to rent the canoe for 7 hours. So I'm going to need to figure out what the sequence is for the payments per hour and how much it will cost me to rent the canoe for 7 hours. First thing I do in a word problem is go back and underline my exact question. I find my question mark and backtrack to the asking word. So it's, how much should it cost to rent a canoe for 7 hours? I circled the 7 hours because that is important. It's not just for 1 hour, it's for full 7 hours. Then I go back and see what I know. I know that, that's my 7 hours, at $5 for 1 hour, and it's $6.75 for 2 hours, and it's $8.50 for 3 hours, and it's $10.25 for 4 hours. So I'm going to write down the sequence of the numbers that I'm given and see what I have. So let's see. I know that it's $5. Underneath that I'll write 1 hour. And then $6.75 is for 2 hours. I'm taking all of this from the problem. $8.50 is for 3 hours. $10.25 is for 4 hours. I don't know how much it is for 5 hours, and I need up to 7. So I'll put a blank for 5 hours. Another blank for 6 hours. My final blank will be for 7 hours, and that's the one I need to figure out. How much will it cost for 7 hours? So I'll take this sequence that I wrote and I'll move to the next page to figure out the work. So here's my sequence, and anytime I need to, I'm given a sequence and I need to fill in missing numbers in the sequence, the first thing I need to do is figure out the rule. So somewhere on the page I'm going to write rule with a colon, and the rule will always have 2 parts. So I'll put a blank for the first part and a blank for the second part. And the first thing for my rule is I'm going to decide whether this is an addition rule or a subtraction rule, and here's how I do it. If the numbers in the sequence that I'm given are getting bigger as I move on, then the rule is an addition rule with a plus sign. But if the numbers in the sequence are getting smaller as I move on, that would mean it's a subtraction rule. So let's look at this sequence. The numbers that are given are $5, goes to $6.75, $8.50, and $10.25. Are my numbers getting bigger or smaller? That's right, they're getting bigger. So what type of rule will it be? It will be an addition rule. So that's the first part of the rule that I have. To figure out the next part of the rule, I'm always going to do the same thing. Sometimes kids get confused and think if it's an addition rule, I have to do one thing, a subtraction rule, I do another thing, and that's not the case. First, I figure out the first blank, addition or subtraction, and for the second blank, I'm always going to do this. I'm always going to subtract any two side-by-side numbers that were given to me. I tend to like to take the first two, so I'm going to take my $6.75 and my $5. Remember, when we subtract, our largest number always goes first. So what's more money? Is $6.75 more money, or is $5 more money? Well, $6.75 is more. So I'll say $6.75 minus $5, and I'll go ahead and subtract. 5 take away 0 is 5. 7 take away 0 is 7. Bring down my decimal. 6 take away 5 is 1. So my rule is going to be, the second line of my rule, I should say, is going to be $1.75. So I write that on my line. So my actual rule is add $1.75. So again, after I put my numbers in order, I need to figure out the rule, which has two parts. The first part is either going to be addition or subtraction. That's part A. To do this, if my numbers are getting bigger, it's addition. If my numbers are getting smaller, it's subtraction. The second part of the rule is part B, and to do this, I take any two numbers that are side by side, I subtract them, make sure that I'm putting the larger number on the top, and that's the second part of my rule. And once I have the complete rule, I have to do part C, which is check to make sure my rule works. Again, this is one of those things that so many students skip and say, I don't need to do it, and that's how they get it wrong. So this is a very important step. Step C, which is check the rule, and to do this, we will check it with two given numbers to be sure that the rule is correct. So I'm going to take my 850 and my 1025. Okay, so when I'm doing the rule, I'm going in order. I would do 850 first, and the rule is plus $1.75. When I add that up, that should equal the 1025. Let's see. 0 plus 5 is 5. 5 plus 7 is 12. Put down the 2, carry the 1. Bring down my decimal. 1 plus 8 is 9. Plus 1 is 10. So I got 1025, and I see that as my second number up there, so that rule checks out. I'll use an arrow to show how the rule checks out. This 1025 is the number that it should be right up there. So I found both parts of my rule. I took two numbers that were given and checked the rule to make sure that it does check out. Now I can go ahead and apply the rule to find my missing numbers. So to apply the rule to find the answer, I have to find the last number that they gave me before the blank, and here it is, it's 1025. So I'll write down 1025. I'll apply my rule, which again was plus $1.75. Add that together. 5 plus 5 is 10. Put down the 0, carry the 1. 1 plus 2 is 3. Plus 7 is 10. Put down the 0, carry the 1. Bring down my decimal. 1 plus 0 plus 1 is 2. 1 plus nothing is 1. So I have $12 goes into the 5-hour time amount. Now I'm going to add another $1.75 to that. 5, 7, 3, $13.75 is what it would cost for 6 hours. Fill that in on my blank. Add another rule, which is plus $1.75. 5 plus 5 is 10. Carry the 1. 7 and 7 is 14. Plus 1 is 15. Which is a 5, carry the 1, bring down my decimal, 1 plus 3 is 4, plus 1 is 5, and my 1. So it would cost $15.50 for 7 hours. Let's stop and go back to the original problem to write a good sentence answer. So I go back to my original problem, and the question says, how much would it cost to rent a canoe for 7 hours? So it would cost $15.50 to rent a canoe for 7 hours, and that's my final answer for example number 1. Please stop the video and complete worksheet number 1 right now. Example number 2 is another type of patterns with decimals problem you may need to solve, and it says write a rule for the pattern, then find the unknown terms in the sequence. In this case, it's not really a word problem, it's just giving us terms in a sequence, and some of the terms in the middle of the sequence are missing. So that's what we need to figure out, as well as the rule. Of course, in order to figure out the missing terms, we must find a rule. So let's see how we tackle this problem. As always, when we have terms in a sequence, the first thing we need to do is find a rule. And a rule is always a two-part rule, so let's write out rule. We have rule with our two blanks. The first blank, part A, is will it be an addition rule or a subtraction rule? So remember, we look at the numbers that we're given, and if they're getting bigger, it's an addition rule. If they're getting smaller, it's a subtraction rule. Let's see what we have. I have 29 and 6/10, 28 and 3/10, 27, 25 and 7/10. If I look at my whole numbers only, they go 29, 28, 27, 25. So are these numbers getting bigger or smaller? That's right, they're getting smaller. The numbers are getting smaller. What's the rule? It's a subtraction rule. So that's part A. Now we have to figure out part B of the rule. In order to figure out part B of the rule, we take any two numbers that are side by side, we subtract them. Remember, in a subtraction problem, the largest number needs to go on top. So I'm going to take 28.3 and 29.6 because they're side by side. What's larger, the 29 or the 28? That's right, 29 is larger, 28 is smaller. So I'm going to say 29.6, take away 28.3. Notice something very important here. This is subtraction with decimals, and add, subtract decimals is always straight decimals. So I certainly lined up my decimals. Now I can subtract. 6 take away 3 is 3. Bring down the decimal. 9 take away 8 is 1. 2 take away 2 is 0. So my number is 1 and 3/10 or 1.3, and I'll put that on my line B. Therefore, I now found the rule, and the rule is minus 1 and 3/10. Step C, again, is the most important step to make sure that you do indeed have the right rule, and that is going to be check your rule. In order to check the rule, we take any two numbers that are next to each other. I'll do the 25.7 and the 27, and we are going to apply the rule. So we take the first number they gave us on theirs, which is the 27. The rule is minus 1.3. But the only problem here is 1.3 has a decimal and 27 doesn't. And this is a subtraction problem. I have to line up my decimals. What can I do? Well, 27 does have a decimal. It's just hidden under the invisibility cloak. So remove my invisibility cloak. Now I have a decimal that I can line up. Decimal to the left is a 1, to the right is a 3. I'm going to want to fill in place value zeros, and we are ready to subtract. So I have 0. Can I give you 3? No, I have to borrow. So I cross out the 7, make it a 6. Now this becomes a 10. And 10 to take away 3 is 7. 6 take away 1, bring down the decimal. 6 take away 1 is 5, and 2 take away nothing is 2. So I have 25.7. And since this step C was check the rule, is that the number I should have right up here? And yes, it is 25.7, so I know that that is a correct rule, minus 1.3. And once that rule checks out, I can move ahead to step D, which is apply the rule. Again, in order to apply the rule, I take the last number that they gave me before the blank, and that would be 25.7. Apply the rule. Well, the rule is minus 1.3. Don't forget to line up your decimals and go ahead and do the math. And 7 take away 3 is 4. Bring down my decimal. 5 take away 1 is 4. And 2 take away nothing is 2. So I'll write that on my next line, 24.4. Apply the rule again, which is the same rule, minus 1.3. 24.4. I'm going to rewrite it because I ran out of room. Minus 1.3, lining up my decimals. 4 minus 3 is 1. Bring down the decimal. 4 minus 1 is 3, 2 minus nothing is 2, and write that up on my next blank. And again, I don't have room to do underneath, so I'll rewrite the 23.1 minus the rule, which is 1.3. If I have 1, can I give you 3? Nope, so I have to borrow. Cross out the 3, make it a 2. Now I have 11, and 11 take away 3 is 8. Bring down the decimal. 2 take away 1 is 1, and 2 take away nothing is 2. So I write that number on my line. So in this problem, I asked me to write a rule for the pattern. I did. My rule is minus 1.3 or 1 and 3/10. Then find the unknown terms. I did. But again, a double check here, because remember on a test, that's about 6 points. Double check here, since I know what the next number after that blank should be, I can do a double check to make sure that I am correct. So I'm going to do this double check and take the last number that I had, which is 21.8. I'll apply the rule again, which was minus 1.3. I subtract. 8 take away 3 is 5. Bring down the decimal. 1 take away 1 is 0. 2 take away nothing is 2. And is that what my next number is up here? Yes, it is. So I know that this definitely is going to be a problem with correct answers. And that makes me happy that my double check checks out. So in this problem, they wanted me to write a rule, and here's my rule, and they wanted me to find the unknown terms, and here they are. Please stop the video and complete worksheet number 2 right now. And example number 3 is yet another type of patterns with decimals problem that you'll probably see and have to solve. Example number 3 says write the first 4 terms in the sequence. The rule, start at 0.35 and add 0.15. So let's see what I know. I need to write the first 4 terms. I know that I'm starting at 0.35, and I know that I am adding 0.15, which is pretty much my rule. So I'm going to take the number that they told me to start at, and I'll write that down, 0.35. And the directions told me to write the first 4 terms, so that's the first term. A blank for the second term, because I don't know what that is yet. A blank for the third term, I don't know what that is yet. And a blank for the 4th term, I don't know what that is yet. So that's what I need to do, is find what those blanks are equal to. Anytime I have a sequence, a pattern or sequence, I need to find the rule. In this case, the rule was given to me. The rule is plus 0.15, because that's the rule they gave me. And if they gave me the rule and I didn't figure it out, there's really no reason to check it, because they told me what the rule is. So therefore, I can go right ahead to the apply the rule step. So I'll take the first given number, which is 0.35. I will apply the rule, which is to add 0.15. Of course, this is addition of decimals, and I have to line up my decimals. I have to be straight. So we add 5 plus 5 is 10. Put down the 0, carry the 1. 1 plus 3 is 4, plus 1 is 5. Bring down my decimal. 0 plus 0 is 0. Put that in for number 2. Now I'm going to apply the rule again, which is the plus 0.15, still lining up my decimals. I add them together, and I get 0.65, so I write that down as my 3rd term. And I applied the same rule again, 0.15. I add them together, and I get 0.80, so I put that down. That is my 4th term. The directions told me to write the first 4 terms of the sequence. I wrote all 4 terms. The first one that they gave me, I applied their rule and wrote the rest. So that is my final answer for example number 3. Please stop the video and complete worksheet number 3 right now. So let's go back and review. We had vocabulary sequence, which is an ordered list of numbers, and term, which is each number within the sequence. Sometimes we'll be given a word problem, and we need to write our own sequence from what they gave us, which is what I wrote here in brown in the pencil. Right, $5 for 1 hour, $6.75 for 2 hours, $8.50 for 3 hours, $10.25 for 4 hours. I wrote blanks all the way up to the hour that they told me I needed to find, which is the 7th hour. Then the next thing I need to do is find the rule. Part A, if my numbers are getting larger, it's an addition rule. If my numbers are getting smaller, it's a subtraction rule. These were getting larger, so it was addition. Part B, to find what the rule is, I take any 2 side-by-side numbers that were given and I subtract them. Larger number on top, smaller number on the bottom. In this case, I took the $5 and the $6.75. $6.75 was larger, so I put it on top. When I subtracted, I got $1.75, so that's my rule, Part A and Part B. Part C, a very important rule, do not skip it, is to check the rule with 2 given numbers in the problem. You know what the answer should be. When you apply your rule, make sure it does equal that. So I took the $8.50, applied my rule of plus $1.75. I got $10.25, and that was the answer I should get, so my rule did check out. Once you know your rule checks, you can go ahead and apply your rule to find the missing blanks. So here I took the last number that they gave me, which was $10.25. I applied my rule, I got $12. I applied it again for the next blank, I got $13.75. I applied the rule again, and I got my $15.50, which was the last blank that I needed. So it costs $15.50 to rent the canoe for 7 hours. Some types of problems that they'll give you for sequences and rules, they will give you some numbers already in order. They'll give you some blanks and some numbers again after it. Again, you need to figure out the rule same way. If the numbers are going up or getting bigger, it's an addition rule. If the numbers are getting smaller, it's a subtraction rule. For part B of the rule, you take any two numbers that are side by side, put the larger one on top, and subtract them. We did this in purple, and we found out that the subtraction answer was 1.3, so our rule was minus 1.3. We checked the rule with the 27. We subtracted 1.3, got 25.7, and found that yes, that's what it should be, so our rule did work. And then we went ahead and applied the rule to find each of the blanks. Since we had some answers at the end, we then double-checked our rule with the last number that we found to make sure that it was correct and equal to the next number that it should be. And finally, in some problems, they'll tell you to write the first certain number of terms in the sequence. They'll give you the starting number, which counts as the first term, and you need to find however many they said. In this problem, they told me to find 4 terms, but a problem might tell you to find 5 or 6 terms, whatever it is. You add the blanks till you have the right number of terms. In this problem, they gave me the rule, so there wasn't anything to check out. I knew what it was. I just simply had to go ahead and apply the rule over and over again to fill in all my blanks. So hopefully, now that we're at the end of the lesson, you can confidently say, I can use addition or subtraction to describe a pattern or create a sequence with decimals. Remember, we will be practicing this in class much more tomorrow, and if you have any questions or concerns, please make sure you point it out to a teacher so that we can sit with you and help you to truly understand it. Good luck with this lesson.